So Instagram's a great spot. Speakeasy.rn is my personal one. I have a lot of my training stuff on there and some fun personality stuff that you'll see occasionally. We do have our Instagram for the business, which is Speakeasy Aesthetics. We're also trying to build out TikTok, but I feel too old to do that. So we've got our kids helping us with that.
Nice.
And then speakeasyaesthetics.com is our website.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Cam Hemphill here, your host for the Medical Millionaire podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. My goal is to give incredible value and insight for practice owners. So if you're thinking about getting into this industry, you're thinking about scaling your med spa, your medical aesthetics practice, everything we talk about on this show, it has to do with the entrepreneurial journey, what it looks like to be a leader, what it looks like to scale a practice, technology, mindset, everything that has to do with creating profits, not just top line revenue, and ultimately delivering a wonderful patient experience, patient for life. And guys, I have an incredible guest on today, somebody who wanted to have on the show for a long period of time. We've been talking more and more just recently, and she has an incredible practice out of Nashville, originally from California. I'll let her talk more about her origin story, but we had a really cool conversation. We met at a conference last year and hit it off, her and her husband, and truly just the spirit of a true entrepreneur, somebody who's been through it thick and thin and has had a tremendous amount of success. And so when I look at this person that I'm going to introduce you to here in a second, she's the co-owner and founder of Speakeasy Aesthetics. Again, she has locations in Tennessee, California. She's a top 100 injector. And really, she's not just an injector. She's somebody that has built a very reputable aesthetics career. So I want to welcome Carly to the show. Carly, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited.
So talk us through your journey. I mean, I know I hit on a couple bullet points there, but I think it makes most sense to come from you. California, Tennessee, Nashville, that whole thing, having two practices and two locations. Across the country, that's got to be hard. So walk us through that.
Yeah. So, it definitely was not the initial plan, so, and I think that's what entrepreneurship is it just kind of transitions and changes as you move through that. I think I initially wanted to just be an injector. I didn't really know what that was, what it looked like. I thought it was going to be easier than working in the hospital. And I quickly found out that it wasn't. So it's been a really cool journey. My husband and I own both practices, one in California, one here in Murfreesboro. And we're actually, you'll actually be the first to hear, but we're opening our third location, which is going to be in Nolensville, Tennessee. So we're really excited about that. We are ready to scale. We've kind of held back and made sure that all of our foundation is set before we can really take off. And so now we're ready. So it's a very exciting time for us. We've been through a lot of hardship. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And, I'm just excited for what's to come. So, yeah, I worked in ER for many years and then kind of got burnt out. And here I am.
That was 13 years ago, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, we've had the practice now. And it's really transitioned from a small one room where my dad came and helped me change light bulbs, and I remember I had to borrow money for my first vial of Botox and I was terrified with that, to now I'm one of the top injectors in the United States and I've done more volume single-handedly than a lot of private equity firms. That's just, crazy to me. So it's been a huge journey and one that's kind of been really cool to be on and learned a lot along the way.
So from borrowing money from one vial to injecting more Botox neurotoxins than most private equity groups, that's tremendous. I think that's something to double click on and to be extremely proud of. So you talk about this other location, and obviously you haven't made the announcement yet, but thank you for making the announcement on the show. I think this is really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm interested though, when you have a practice, California, still up and running, you have to have systems, process in place, management, team. You open up another practice, not only in obviously the same country, but many miles away. It's not just the other town or county, down the road. How are you able to put those systems management in place to say, you know what, this thing's it's on its own two legs, it can survive, while I veer off and go across the country and open up another practice? I mean, it's scary. There's a resilience there, but something had to give you the confidence to go down that direction.
Yeah, I think that sometimes as an entrepreneur, we do things, we jump and then we like figure it out later on. And that was our journey with moving to Tennessee. We were ready for something different. And my husband and I decided to move out of California to Tennessee. It's been one of the best decisions that we ever made. But I mean, I was very, very terrified to leave what I knew, which was Orange County, California, which is one of the meccas of the aesthetics industry. That being said, I also knew that if I could make it in Orange County, California, I can make it anywhere in the country. And that's because it's a highly saturated area. There's probably, I could throw a rock and hit 20 med spas from where our Mission Viejo practice was. So I knew that if I just took what we had learned with the California practice and I implemented it in Tennessee, that we would be okay. And what really happened was we actually grew so rapidly. We exceeded our California numbers within the first year and a half of opening Tennessee. And so that was like really interesting. And I think what happened with us was I started focusing on quality. And whereas in the California market, when we first started our practice, we have made the mistake initially of focusing on sales, what other practices were doing and things like that. And that was early on in my career. I really made that mistake you know, of worrying about what the other practice down the street was doing. And I think as we moved and transitioned, I really understood it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. If I just keep my nose to the pavement and we keep doing what we're doing and we keep focusing on exceeding and quality and our systems in place, it's going to work, and it has. But part of that is we've learned over time, you know. And so I think like our California practice was one that we really learned a lot in, and then our Tennessee practices, it's like a well-oiled machine now. So I do have to say that it was not an easy transition. We learned a lot through our first baby, right? Just like if you have a kid, your first kid, you learn how to parent, and that's how it was with our practices. And so now moving forward to Tennessee, we've really been able to dial it in and clean it up and focus more on systems in place. And now we're actually focusing more on data. We're focusing more on, how we can market to people and also the value of our company and how we can increase the amount of data that we bring in, right? So we have like a whole different mindset than when it first started, but luckily I've learned along the way what systems didn't work and what did. And so now we're able to learn from our own mistakes from our first practice and execute on moving forward and scaling.
I guess that's. I've been wondering why my second child is so much easier than my first. No, it's no, I get that. It's look, you get into business that is a, let's call it a newbie entrepreneur. You get in there, you get your hands, you wet, your dirty, your feet wet, whatever you want to call it, and you just have to figure it out, right? You have to figure it out, and I think that's a really amazing incubation system that you had. Know what works, what doesn't work, have the ability and tenacity to go across the country and say, look, I'm going to do this again. I've learned what works, what does not work, obviously still learning. I'm going to open up another practice and I know exactly what not to do. And I think it's exceptional the fact that you were able to surpass the numbers within 1 year than what you're doing in Orange County. I mean, that's incredible. You moved the whole family across the country too, right?
We did, yeah. Everybody's here, so it's been great. But yeah, it was. I call it like a Hail Mary. You just hope that it works. Um, but sometimes that blind faith like really leads to where you're supposed to be. And I think it allowed us to really expand. And those are two completely different markets, California and Tennessee. They're very different. Uh, and so although, you're doing a lot of the same procedures, we quickly realized in Tennessee, California, you kind of know what type of clients coming in. There's a look to California clients, there really is. And in Tennessee, you cannot judge a book by its cover. You have very high profile clientele that you would never know would want to spend the type of money that you can do a full face consultation with. And I think we quickly learned like, hey, we need to get we need to focus on full face consultations. We need to focus on full care plans. We need to focus on additional treatments being added in, how many touch points we can have in the practice. And so it really shifted, whereas California is more syringe based, special based, focused on the dollar, and Tennessee is really, for us, it's been focused more on quality. But that could just be that because that's what we're focusing on, that we're attracting that clientele now too. So it's been a really great expansion for us. We're really looking forward to scaling in Tennessee.
It's not too often I have guests on that have practices in, two really amazing markets that are completely different.
Mhm.
Orange County, obviously, at the forefront of origin of aesthetics and kind of what people look to is like plastic surgery, the front runner when it comes to aesthetics. And now you have, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm an hour flight away from Nashville, so I've spent some time in Nashville, and there is a tremendous amount of capital there. And that market has grown tremendously in the past 4 or 5 years. You've seen it, obviously, boots on the ground. Real estate prices have gone up. There's been a lot of cash injection into the local economy. I think it's a wonderful place to live, raise a family, and you've seen a lot of migration take place into that local market. And so, that's interesting. It's when you say your clientele is different in Tennessee and not judge a book by its cover. There's also a lot of old money there, right? There's old
Yes.
money, and people are, I would say, maybe more laid back, more into the country lifestyle, the music scene. What have you seen?
Well, the other part, though, I think, is that there's more disposable income in Tennessee because people aren't like, and I love California, but most people are overextended because it's very expensive. It's one of the um, highest expense areas in the nation, right? So people are going to be more focused on how can they save a buck. And I think where we really differentiated ourselves in Tennessee is coming out of the gate. And Joey and I decided that we wanted to not, I've worked for various different companies and they have a lot of different models, and some of them will be price driven or volume driven. And for us, we wanted to be the best. And that's literally what we say. Like Joey and I will tell each other, we are the best. And that's what we tell each other. That's how we believe. And we continue to, set the bar out here. And I think there's a little bit of a lag time in Tennessee, whereas in California, things hit the market and every injector in town is trying it. They're doing it. There's something like that. Tennessee's a little bit behind. So what that did is it gave me an advantage to lead the pack in Tennessee. And that has really helped us, as far as um, us really attracting the right clientele that's focused on quality. They're focused on the results, and they're focused on, being in a practice that, hears what they're asking for and can deliver the results. And so I think that really helped us out here too.
Yeah, I would agree. It's almost like you come into the into Nashville with that California backbone,
Hmm.
and it almost like puts you in a position of instant credibility to come with innovation
Yes. Right.
and spearhead it into your own objective and your own value proposition. I love the fact that you and Joey say we're the best. We know we're the best, and that when you say that, you lead with so much confidence. And your patients have to feel that. Your team has to feel that, right? The culture within the practice has to feel that. I'll tell you also, I've worked and talked with thousands of practice owners, and very few of them know their identity. Very
Hmm.
few, right? Some, I mean, they signature treatments, whatever it is, but you nailed it. You know who you are. Look, we're
Yes.
the best. We do full face consultations. When I hear that, I think of high ticket, great patient outcome. Period. That's what it is. Yes, you're gonna invest in your longevity of how you look and feel, but you are going to actually receive the result you're looking for.
Right. Definitely. And we're building those relationships for life, you know,
Yep.
um, and that is part of that retention aspect that's really important for us. So yeah, we truly believe that. And of course, we make mistakes like every aesthetic practice. I make mistakes. I'm always learning, but I think focusing on how can we get this much better every day, that continues to basically quantify, and then you really are the best. And so that's kind of like how we like to focus. And our internal team truly believes the same. We have a phenomenal nurse practitioner inside in Murfreesboro who's, um, been ahead in functional wellness for 10, 15 years. We have an esthetician who's over 20 years, advanced master SD who teaches still. All of us teach in the office. And so, I think that knowing what we bring to the table and attracting the right clientele is where we're at. I know not every client is for me, and I'm perfectly okay with that. You know, um, we really don't get clients in the treatment room that are asking for a discount. It doesn't happen. So, and it used to when I first started, and I think it's because my confidence was lacking when I first entered the industry, right? That I attracted those patients that were like, oh, she's newer, maybe she's in a small space, and maybe I can get a deal, right? Because that's really how it works. And then they could feel my confidence lacking. Well, now I don't get asked that because people, they know where they're coming. They know that they're going to be taken care of well. They know that what we're recommending is going to give them results. And it's that trust. So that's just how we like to do it, and it works really well for us.
It weeds out the patients you don't need, want. There's a place for them. There's a place for everybody. And I mean, that's why people, shop at specific stores versus others, right? That's why we eat at specific restaurants versus others. You know what
Yeah.
you're getting, right?
Yeah.
And I think traditionally it's been hard in medical aesthetics to identify who we are. Are we full face consult? Are we the place you want to go to get the outcome, or are you looking for a quick weekend fix, right?
Yeah. And even in your
Um,
marketing,
yeah,
like knowing who you are in your marketing and your branding, we are not like anybody else. We just aren't. I don't want to be, right? I don't want to be like every other med spa that looks exactly the same. If you walk through our office, we have blue velvet flocked wallpaper down our hallway. You know what I mean? Like we have a vibe. It almost feels like a tattoo shop in here. But it feels like an elevated luxury spot space. And so from the beginning, when the first touch point of when we talk to that patient all the way through the process of getting them results, we know who we are, you know, and not everybody might want to come to us, but we know that our clients that do, they know who we are. They see our branding, and it just works that way. And I think that's how, in a saturated industry, which everyone thinks Nashville's saturated. I don't believe it is. After being in Orange County, but being in the aesthetics industry and seeing saturated industries, it's really important to differentiate yourself through your personality, right? Everyone can go to any injector. What is going to make you memorable, right? And I think that it's really important as far as a marketing standpoint too. So to not be like everyone else, because everyone else has the templates that look exactly the same. Everyone else has the sales that are all looking exactly the same. But what is different that is getting you that patient in the door, makes them want to come see you, right?
well said. Well said. I see so much look alike, follow so and so. They did this, and that's the playbook. And you
Yes.
are a true walking testament of staying in your lane, knowing who you are, knowing what you represent, and attracting those patients that come into the practice. That's exactly who you want to work with,
Yes.
right? Which
And
is
it's
perfect.
easier that way. It's easier that way, we are attracting our dream clientele. I don't really have to worry about as many of the problem patients anymore. You know,
How much time do they take?
it's so you lose so much money on those, and I think a lot of people that are entering the field, they think, oh my gosh, this huge company is doing a syringe for 199. I need to be doing that. Totally the worst thing you can ever think to do, right? In my opinion, right? There are companies that are based on that and they do well with that model. For me personally, I'm looking for retention, looking for repeat business from that clientele. It is not a one-time touch, right? I'm seeing them back in 2 weeks for a touch-up. I'm scheduling them a facial with our esthetician immediately, right when they come in the door. We're talking about skincare. We're talking about lasers. We're talking about what more we can do to help them achieve their goals, which a lot of people might think, oh, that's a lot of money to be spending. I'm not pushy and salesy. I'm just going to tell them exactly how I can get to their concerns addressed, how I can get their concerns addressed, and how we're going to get the roadmap to do it. Right. So I think that, a lot of people get focused on the per syringe thing or, lowballing and things like that. And I think that there's only very few companies that can do that for longevity, you know,
Yeah, you have to be like just
huge.
massive amounts of volume.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much volume, not care if they come back. I mean, have good systems, processes, good injectors, right? But I mean, I can imagine how many patients you have to see in a particular day in order to have a decent net income. Um, well, then you're just, you're bringing on lots of liability. It's you're burning out the staff, you're burning out yourself, right? You're exposing yourself to more patients having bad
Inflation,
experience.
yep,
Hmm.
all kinds of
Yeah.
problems. Yeah.
So I want to learn more about that. This is an area where I see a ton of practice owners really struggle. Is the consult. Um, I'm a big marketer. I'm a true believer that the best practices are truly the best marketers at really marketing their value proposition and who they are. People have to know who you are. If no one knows that you own a medical aesthetics practice, chances are you're not going to be very successful. So that's number one: eyeballs, reputation. But once that patient comes in the door, and I see so many people struggle with this, providers in particular, is do you have a playbook? How does that consult work? Because you talked about treatment plans. You're going to see our SD for this. We talk about skincare. You're going to see me in 2 weeks. Did that just come naturally to you? Um, I'm
No,
curious how you, okay.
no. And a lot of people might say, oh my gosh, you see every patient back in 2 weeks after you do their talks. And yes, absolutely. And so at first I thought, okay, when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, do their talks and I'll see them in 3 months, 4 months. And what I quickly learned is that that really wasn't enough touch points to drive home the fact of what other treatments they need, because we all know tox is the gateway drug, right? It's basically how we get patients into our practice. For me, it actually is a high revenue earner because I do so much volume in talks. But for most practices, it's very low revenue, right? Um, for the ROI and everything on that. But so what you have to do is talk to them about other things, and I think really, like, I want to see that patient come in the door more times, right? It's a touch point. It's a touch point. We are solidifying where they're coming for multiple things. We also do hormone replacement therapy. We do peptides. There's all these different things so that we can really get as many touch points with that patient, their family members, their mom, their sister, right? There's always somebody that can have something done at our office. And so having them come at 2 weeks, one, it shows that I care, right, what their outcome is. It shows that I stand behind my work and I want to make sure that what we did is what it meets their expectations, right? It allows them to trust me because I straight up tell them, feel free to, you know, if you're unhappy, if you have any questions, like, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Because the worst thing you can do is send a patient off and then they're in a Facebook forum going, I got Botox from Easy Aesthetics and I have all this movement in my forehead. Well, you should have, if you're a good provider, you should have set that expectation before they left the front door, that they can come back and talk to you. Have an open line of communication, right? So
Mhm.
that's bringing them back in. They know they already have an appointment set. And I tell them, if everything's perfect, you can cancel the appointment. But they know that we care, that we're giving them that small 15-minute window of time in our schedule to talk to them about everything. And that also allows me to say, your talks looks great. Did you have any other questions? Are there any other concerns that you have today? And usually what that leads into is, I have dark spots under my eyes, or can you do anything about this age spot? Or, you know what, my son has a tattoo that he needs to be removed. Can you guys help with that? And so it leads into that. And it's like a whirlpool where, I'm doing a full face consultation. Joey's doing a full face laser consultation. Our MP is then seeing them for hormones, peptides, we also have the esthetician that's scheduling them their first free facial, which a lot of people will go, wow, you do a first free facial? Yeah, because I want them to experience my esthetician and how amazing she is. One free facial be will have them be a lifetime client of us if you have a good SD. And I've
Nice.
learned that a couple ways too. One time I gave away 200 facials with an esthetician that was kind of subpar. I thought she was okay, right? But I was wondering why she wasn't rebooking, and I started listening to the treatment room. She wasn't recommending products, right? Um, she wasn't telling the patient what she was doing during the procedure. And I think she was just a little hesitant with the sales aspect. And it is art. You can definitely come off super salesy if you do it the wrong way, right? So I gave away 200 free facial, and I think she rebooked maybe like three, right?
Jeez.
Huge loss,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So I thought, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore with that one. So got rid of that esthetician, have a phenomenal esthetician who truly believes in what she does, incorporates neck, shoulder massage with her, as with her facial. I mean, talks about products before the patient leaves the room. She has products sitting up on the counter for them to look at when they check out, what's recommended. She makes notes in the chart so we know what we're recommending, right? Full treatment plans. From her retention is impeccable. She has now, I've given away probably maybe 60, 70 facials with her because one, what I'm paying for is her hourly, right?
Yep.
Probably a total of maybe $6, $7 in product if you're doing a regular facial. It's not huge. I know that in order for me to get a client, it's generally a minimum of $50 out in the market, right? At least. So why wouldn't I turn my tox patients into an esthetician patient too? So we automatically incorporate that now that we have a really good SD. And she's now pretty much every single patient is rebooking because it's such a good experience. They come out of the room and they're like half asleep, drooling. It's wonderful. You
They
know?
love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. When you said massage, neck massage and shoulder
Yeah,
massage, I'm like, let's go.
but I mean,
Okay.
things like that is so variable because if you don't have the staff to support, you're literally just watching money walk out too.
Yep. Yep.
So I think that that's really important for us as business owners is to fully trust our staff that we have there. And if you don't trust them, get them trained, invest.
Invest in your staff. Yeah, I completely agree. Exactly. What Carly's saying here. It's very expensive to acquire a new patient.
Mhm.
The fact that she says $50, I'm going to say
That's
that's on the
all.
low end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the low end. Typically, patient acquisition, if you're paying for it through Google Ads, like outside the website, word of mouth, it's like 100 to $150. That's for the lead. To convert them to put staff dollars on that, it's even higher. So why not bolt that patient that's already in your clinic into an amazing experience with a great SD? They're going to pay more. So now your average ticket has immediately gone up and they're going to have a wonderful experience. And so what also happens is that you increase your patient frequency, right? So they've now had one service with Tox, another service with the SD, the facial. If your SD is good, she's going to talk about skin regimen, right? Products. Now they're even more invested. So that's like three touch points. Then they move on to the laser and she just takes them through the entire practice. And ultimately, they're on the wellness, the peptides, the GLP-1s, they're seeing you for talks, for facials, for laser treatments. Like it's a full thing. Um, but I want to just go back a little bit because you mentioned good SD versus maybe, an untrained SD.
Yeah.
I've seen that as well. I've seen it to where it goes really well. I've seen it to where, it flops. How can you did this new SE just have the ability to communicate effectively, deliver, confident about the product? You have one product, multiple. Like, why was it a complete turnaround from every patient rebooks to very low rebooking with the old one and giving away so much time?
Well, I think that she was hungry. And so like that is really important for us. We do incentivize our staff to sell products, right? And so I did with the other Esther too, but she didn't really, it's like she didn't really care, you know? And so I think you have to really find your tribe and make those clear good hires because it can make or break a practice. That goes with injectors too. A lot of people, even if people haven't been injecting for 3 years, you'll see injectors that are still very uneducated on things, and that can actually break your business. And so I think like clearly interviewing and seeing what their actual level is, also making sure you have somebody that has the drive and the initiative to do what you're asking, right? Because I can tell somebody, I'm going to give you this incentive to sell these products, do contests and all kinds of things. But if they don't have the incentive, it's just going to fall short. So I think like knowing that personality of that employee is huge. Um, And like, she was really hungry for knowledge. She wanted to learn. So whenever we have a lot of products that we actually offer in the office, we have various skincare lines. I think we have like 8. A lot of people would
Okay.
say that's too many, but we have a lot of variation in what we carry. And so she wants to learn all the time, just like I do, you know, just like my nurse practitioner does, just like Joey does. Like, we're snowed in last night. I was on a podcast or on a webinar last night for Threads. I'm constantly learning. Like, even though I've been doing it a long time and I am considered an educator, I still need to be educated, right?
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
for my staff too. So, you can send out all the webinars to your staff, but if they're not actually somebody that is wanting to invest in their own knowledge, you're going to see that in the treatment room results too. So it's really hard to find those good hires.
Do you have performance-based compensation rolled out for her?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yep,
So, and do you have performance-based comp for the other providers?
we do. We have
Okay.
incentive bonuses and things like that where it basically, like, our nurse practitioner gets tiered, um, and it incentivizes them to hit those higher levels. I think one of the things you really shouldn't do is like a standard, this is your commission. They should really be incentivized to hit those higher tiers, right? Otherwise, you're going to see that, like, towards the end of the month, they'll be like, oh, okay, I can sell a little bit more and I'll get paid that commission. No, I want you throughout the month continuing to hit those levels, right? And so I think that that has worked better for us, you know?
Yeah.
And even
Yes.
Joey does it to me. Like, the other day, he texted me. He's like, Melissa was within $600 of your totals. I said, what? I like pulled out the reports. I'm like, oh, you forgot about all these ones here. And he's like, oh, I'm like, but
Oh, I love the competition. That's great.
going and moving and driven within our practice. So
Yeah.
it's good.
So on the performance-based comp, I completely agree. When it comes to the providers, what about staff, right? So as this is another area that it's a challenging area, is front desk, especially if you're spending money on marketing, the phone's going off, you have bookings taking place, your EMR, your CRM, wherever they're coming in. And these leads or these new patients are expensive, and we want to make sure that we get them in our ecosystem. Because I would assume for you, your average ticket or revenue per hour per provider is higher. It's probably above benchmark. Just having the conversation. Obviously, I haven't seen numbers or anything like that. I would assume it's so every patient you receive is actually even that much more important because they stay with you longer. Your lifetime value per patient is probably extremely high. How do you align the staff when it comes to a new lead coming in, a new booking? Are they trained? Did they come from a different practice? How do you align the culture incentives around that?
Yeah, so they actually do have incentives as far as a couple things. So they do get paid incentives if they sell skincare products at the front desk, right? If they upsell them there. So we do incentivize them there. We also are now looking at, we think of the patient in the practice and when they're leaving, what they're paying. But one other thing that I think a lot of practices forget is how important our data is. Like, it's huge. When you go to sell a practice, if your data isn't clean, that's going to drop your valuation. And so even when somebody takes in a new lead, we're verifying that the email's in the system, phone number's correct, right? Like, those two things right there, then you can build that marketing machine with the data that you have. If you're not doing that, you're totally missing out on a huge opportunity. And so your front desk is actually where you can use the most money if you have front desk who is not educated on how to respond to a client, right? So they do have talk tracks, and if they're unsure of how to answer a question, they know that they can come to Joey and I at any time before responding, right?
Okay.
I do not want them to answer a question that they cannot confidently answer, right? Because you can lose a client that way. We also don't publish our prices online. And so that one right there, that's going to weed out all the price shoppers, right? Which I want. Okay. So we do talk to them. We can talk to them about price ranges when they call, but we don't usually specifically quote over the phone. And so, but they do have talk tracks. Our girls are very comfortable. Most people know who they're talking to on the phone when they call in, right? They know either Abby or Mariah. And so I think that helps too, that it's the same person. And our Murfreesboro location does all the booking for all the locations, right? So it's a home base. So it's like a call center basically, uh,
Hmm.
but it doesn't feel like a call center. And so that's kind of how we like to do that. But we do have multiple systems. We have a lead capturer on our website. So every time somebody comes to our website, there's a widget, and that person can then say, how did you find us? Do you have a question? That goes into a lead generator that then goes to the front office. Our front office then captures that data, puts it into our booking system where we capture all that, and we're reaching out to them immediately, trying to get them booked. So if there's a missed call, they're immediately calling back, things like that too. So, it's important, but I think a lot of times you can lose a lot of money by the front desk. And by having patients reach out to you directly, you'll lose a lot of sanity. So I no
Oh my
longer do
gosh.
that. I forward everything to the front desk now.
Yeah, because they want to hit you up in DMs. They want to text you. They want to talk to Carly.
Yeah, I call it the push, 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 push.
Push it over.
You
Yeah,
know?
and that
So
actually, it's somebody who owns their time, values their time, recognizes that, and it actually puts you in a position of strength.
yes,
Because they're like, oh, I just don't have access to Carly. I got to go through the channels. Okay, eventually I will see her. So it immediately elevates you, right?
yes.
So I
And it
completely agree,
allows
and I
me to
think,
focus on things that are more valuable. Not
yep,
that
yep,
their question isn't valuable, right?
sure.
But there's other things that I can be doing, like, you know, Joey and I are utilizing AI now to try to figure out different ways of marketing. You know what I mean? Like there's things that are
Hmm.
really valuable that I think if you're sitting there responding to patients when a front desk who's being paid to do that could be doing that, you're in essence losing something really valuable that could be helping you grow. There's so many things as a business owner that we have to be focusing on, so getting rid of the stuff and delegating is huge. And that's probably one of the things I've learned over the past couple of years is delegation is probably one of the biggest things that I really needed to do early on.
Yeah, and it's hard to do it, right? You have to have experience and have a team you rely on, and they're never going to be as good as you are, right? But it's nice to have the ability to push that over, so you can work on the business versus in the business, and focus on other areas that can actually move the needle versus just reply. And I think early on in the career, you want to be the person that's the fastest to respond and always available and always available. I think there's a graduation factor that takes place. Once you've been in the game long enough, you realize, wow, I think if I'm available all the time, number one, it's probably a burden on myself, my family, and I have no time. And for others, it actually does devalue your expertise and your patience. You're training your patients that you're just always available.
Hmm.
Which is it's not what we want. It's not way to live. So I completely agree. Okay, so you're a top 100 injector, right? But you're deeply rooted safety, evidence based practice. How do you balance that today with let's call it social media vanity,
Crazy.
right? This is a vanity place, but also safety.
Yeah, well, we're in a really weird time right now with aesthetics where, you know, it's really sad for a lot of newer injectors where they look at a lot of injectors on social media as like a deity, where they're worshiping whatever this injector is pushing this week, and and I think when I started to look past that and realize, hey, that's kind of weird. Like last week they're pushing this product, now they're pushing that one, and get focused more on the science, it really helped me elevate. So, and it helped me make better business decisions as well. So now I'm part of medical affairs for a company. So I'm very rooted in science and safety and efficacy. I pull FDA approvals before anything else. I pull studies before anything else. I'm a total nerd. And so I think for me, it was just really important to understand that you don't really follow everyone on social media. And started to realize I'm like, hey, maybe if these people are online all the time, maybe they're really not that busy. Like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
they're just being pushed by a lot of the companies or they're being funded and things like that. And so I kind of stopped really looking at what was going on in a lot of different influencers in the aesthetic field. And I started looking at people that were more evidence-based educators, people that I really highly respect. Um, but it's a dangerous time in aesthetics. There's people doing things that are flat out, dangerous, and posting it on social media for newer injectors to do, which just baffles me.
Yeah.
So I'm always one that doesn't usually do that, you know. So it's a weird time in the industry, and I think we're going to see things shift a little bit from that because um, state boards get involved and regulatory, and as much as everyone kind of thinks that it's okay to do everything that everyone does on social media, I will tell you it's not. And so knowing products, knowing that is really key.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's an interesting place to be right now, and it's interesting to see what's being shared and posted online, and I think vanity and the ability to chase a dollar over safety and a true foundational medicine approach is it's interesting to see. Obviously, you see it, I see it, and
Dealt with liability. It's expensive. I've had to pay an attorney to defend my license.
have you really?
Yes, absolutely, from a false claim. All they did was go, and a lot of people forget that these patients, they can just go on to the state board and submit a complaint, you know, and regardless of whether it's founded or not, you know,
Yeah.
that's something that cost me over $35,000 to defend my license for a false claim, right? So I think that, and I use this to my advantage now with my training and consulting business. When I talk to people about SOPs and I talk to people about regulations and how you're operating your practice and the importance of it in the back end, because I had to learn the hard way, you know. So luckily, it's something that I came out of, but I mean, many practices would have a hit like that and they wouldn't be able to dig out from it,
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's,
that completely knocks someone off.
that's one patient. I see, our California practice, we had over 5,000 patients. Tennessee, we're, creeping up towards that amount right now. And so you figure one patient, and it can be anything. It can be that they were upset that they spent $700 on something, you know? And so I think like really looking at your risk and mitigating that and being, safe with your good faith exams, with your consents, with your policies and procedures, with your medical director involvement, all these different things are really, really, really important. And they're more important than how the place down the street is selling something, you know? Um, so now we mitigate our risk, which, I believe makes us more profitable in the long run. And if it takes me a few extra minutes for that patient to sign in their consents, I don't care, right? Like they might be upset that they have to go through 9 pages. It's one time a year, we gotta mitigate the risk, and we are in a time where people will do things to try to get money out of places too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
this is a medical profession. I mean, you have a fiduciary to take them through that, and they need to sign off on the consent. And I completely agree. It's I love that you look at it through the lens of a blessing, and the fact probably during the time it was a pain in the ass, and oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it was so much anxiety and expensive, and now it's looked at as look, maybe on one sense you're glad it happened to you
Yeah.
because it put you in a position to educate on it, put you in a position to really peel back the books, know exactly like this is never going to happen to me again. It's going to change how
Exactly.
I run my practice, right?
Yep.
I love that, and it's like, wow, that person probably could have went and gave you a bad review, but nope. There's those people out there that are going to go the extra mile and go. People have time on their hands. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
They go to the Yelp, they go to Google, they can go to the state board, and
Mhm.
ultimately really like ruin the life and the career that you're trying to build. It's just so unfortunate. So
And I think regulating bodies are now being smarter. Like we're seeing a lot of changes in Florida right now and New York, where they're actually targeting a lot of med spas that are, operating illegally, right? And so, like, this is an investment for us, right? This is our life investment in this building. And so, for me, like, my husband and I want to make sure that our practice is bulletproof. If state board walks in, I want to make sure that everything is okay. I have a log for my centrifuge. I mean, like there's above and beyond things, so that if they come in, they just leave and go, thank you, have a nice day, instead of becoming, you know, a front page headline. Like, and I think a lot of people are so worried on about getting that patient in the door that they forget that regulatory really needs to be that foundation of the practice.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. It's almost like it's having insurance on your business, right?
Mhm.
And I had this conversation with my wife a long time ago. Geez, maybe 8, 9 years ago. But you get yourself in a position where you advance in life, you advance your career. Maybe you invest in buildings, real estate, stocks, bonds. You have vehicles, you have assets, right? And you've done a really good job of accumulating assets and working hard and being productive and producing and saving cash and really being frugal with your money, and you're living within your means. Um, and I overinsure everything. So I look at it in that from that lens. Everything's overinsured.
Yep.
The insurance bills that we carry, there's umbrellas on top of the LLCs, on top of the I can go on and off, but it's
Even my
I look at it
training
like that.
policies, even
Training
my
policies,
training
yeah,
policies, are expensive. A lot of people think, oh, I want to be a trainer. It's like, it's expensive to do that. I pay for a separate policy annually to do that. Um, but I think the patients feel a little better too when they go
sure.
to a practice. Like I hear a lot of times, and it kind of baffles me because they'll come in and they'll go, "Wow, I've never had a good faith exam done, and I've been doing Botox for 15 years." I'm like, "Hmm. Well, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and this is how we do it here. And um, moving forward, like, this is what you can expect. You're going to see one of our mid levels, to get you medically cleared. It's for your safety, and you can see the stress and the anxiety come off their shoulders because they know they're in a place that's reputable. They know they're in a place that's safe, and then they're going to trust. And what I do think that converts to is, the regulation and the safety for the patient converts to more word of mouth referrals, because those patients then go, like, I'm huge in the Facebook groups with like moms groups. I'll get so
Okay.
many referrals from people that someone will say looking for Botox. It'll be like 28 out of the 30 comments are all referrals for us.
Amazing.
And so
You
that
can't. That's
for
amazing.
us that's like the key, it's free marketing. But I think it's because they feel safe. They know that it's a reputable place. Um, and they've had like good experiences where they feel safe, so they're willing to refer people. And I think that that's another key factor is if you're doing things the right way, the people will tell their friends, they're going to tell their family, and even other providers. Like, I treat other providers, I treat reps in the industry, and it's because we're doing things the right way. It might be a little more expensive at first, right? But the longevity in that is really key for us.
Yeah, you're building a brand. It's about reputation and trust. No one's going to refer you if they don't trust you. I mean, that's just in my market very very similar. The Facebook groups are absolute key. In my neighborhood, there's 1,400 houses. There's a Facebook group just for the community. And if you're on the naughty list, like if you, because we'll
Everyone's
have
gonna hear
pools.
about it.
Oh, everybody hears about it. No one's going to. Like,
Yeah.
we'll have pools here, and we have our pools cleaned by whoever. Like, the minute like you're on the bad pool guy list, you're done.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it's the same way, and I love that. I saw that you had Dockovia on
Yeah.
your website for the good faith exams. Great company. I know those guys really well. They have a great product,
Yes, they do.
which is really cool.
We've been with them
Okay,
for a long time.
have you? Yeah, yeah, they're great. Good faith exams, I think, are super important. I've never had one. I've had injectables done in Utah and Florida. I don't know what the
You
regulations
probably
are.
have in Florida because you're seen by an MP. So you probably
Okay,
don't even realize that you're getting a good faith exam.
okay,
But like that's because in Florida, NPs only can inject, right? So you're probably automatically getting one by the time you're seeing somebody
just
there,
by the
most
time I see.
likely. But if it's out of state, most of the delegation depends on the regulation of that state. But like, for instance, in Tennessee, it's very gray still, right? It doesn't really say that a good faith exam has to be completed in the regulations, but we're from California and it's very clear in California. And so we just integrated all that into our processes in Tennessee so that we're ahead of the game, we're safe, and we don't have to worry about it if it ever changes later on down the road, you know. So, yeah.
Now, let's talk about training, because you brought that up for a minute in terms of you consult, you have an academy, you enjoy Give Back, you help other practices. I know that you train for large PE firms,
Hmm.
Latibo, Prelenium. Um, you're on leadership for some of these, big groups and big names. Like, how does leading at scale different from running your own practice?
Well, it's totally different. It's given me a little insight into how different every practice is, which is great. It's really helped me as far as my training and consulting goes. Um, I love to train, though. It's really what I'm passionate about. I love treating patients, but I really love seeing the lights come on with practitioners when they're in the middle of a training and you're teaching them something that they've never heard before. Because I know from my own experience, when I first started, I took a class, a weekend class, at a big company that everybody knows, and I left and I knew nothing. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, okay, I'm going to do this Botox, and I have no idea what's going on, right? Um, and so I know that we all start somewhere, right? And what I always tell my trainees is like the only difference between me and them is I have a lot more pokes than them, right? I have a lot more experience, right? Cumulative experience. But, if you can really dive into education, you can elevate so much. And so for me, I focus a lot on anatomy and treating according to anatomy and treating with products that I truly believe in. And so for us with like Latibo and Prolinium, and, I even was a corporate injector for Evolus for many years, I pair with companies that I ethically believe in. And not saying that other companies aren't ethical, but for me, I like to know, things like how much BDD is in a hyaluronic acid, and it's really interesting to teach providers the differences with products, and because a lot of us are pushed, oh, you have to use this product here, you have to use this product there, you have to use this product here, and no, you shouldn't be using that product. And what it comes down to is like the science behind it, right? And pairing with companies that'll help your practice, right? I, for instance, know that every neuromodulator that's approved in the US right now is a botulinum type A, right? They all might have a little bit different personality, but they're all generally the same, right? They work very much the same in the studies. If I can just figure out the different personality of each product, is this something that I can incorporate into our practice? And so, from a teaching perspective, it's really cool to help other providers to go, wow, this can actually help me become more profitable and make my patients happier. I'm in, you know.
Yeah.
That's when I'm training for the companies. I don't train for any companies that I don't truly 100% believe in, and that's just because of how I am. Like, I have to sleep at night. I am not one that can lie, and like you would know, right? So um, I really stand behind like all the companies that I train for. They're all very ethical, ethical sourcing and everything like that. So it really helps. And then for training practitioners, there's so many different levels to it. Like, I do intro classes. I also do more advanced classes. I do sexual wellness classes. We do like all kinds of different things. So that whole spectrum where I have somebody who's never touched a neuromodulator, taking them from the baby steps, right? Talking to them about how it works, you know, what happens when a neuromodulator is injected into the muscle. From that point all the way to, advanced classes, there's so much variability. And so I really try to meet the trainee where they're at. And so I do have trainings that are structured, but I will tell you that what I found is I like to do private trainings personally because I can really meet that trainee where they're at and say, okay, I want to know where you're at with this. How are you feeling? And then I can understand, okay, let's get you to the next level. Because
Hmm.
I can take everyone through an outline of the same exact thing in a training. But when I actually meet that trainee where they're at and say, let's get you to the next level, that's when the magic happens. And I will tell you that most of my trainees, they reach out to me very frequently. They talk to me about questions and concerns. And if I don't have an answer, I'll usually find it for them. So I take my training really seriously. I love it. I don't do I don't do big classes usually, because I feel like you kind of miss a lot in translation with that. I usually like to do small, intimate classes so that we can really focus on where they're at. Um, but I also train for a lot of large private equity firms. And so in that setting, I might be with a large private equity firm for several months where I'm training their staff over and over and over and over, right? So that's from charting all the way to regulation, results, follow up, texting them to see how their patient is, right? And so there's just so many different levels to it, but I think training is really the key to elevate practices.
Well said. I completely agree. I love the fact your approach to it, working with people that you trust, people really staying in that lane, and having the intimacy. I think that I look at that in terms of conferences. On some level, conferences, there's small ones that are more intimate. I have received the best advice and networked at the fullest capacity from a more intimate type of setting. And I think sometimes you think bigger the better, but really it's things can be lost during translation. You can get sidetracked. There creates a lot of noise when we really want to focus on the signal of why we're there and what's the objective. And so I completely agree with you there.
Yeah.
I know you got to go, and we're coming down on time here, but I just one more thing is when it comes to the financial benefit of being a provider, being a practice owner, the sustainability, the longevity. From your perspective, what actually creates long-term wealth in aesthetics?
I'd have to say integrity.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. It goes to your point on your Facebook groups. If someone asks a question about who's the best in the area, your name comes up. And that's something that took time to build. Your name just doesn't come up for no reason,
Right.
right? It comes up because it's trust, it's validated, you have integrity across the board, and it's going to put you in a position to continue to lower your patient acquisition costs, create trust, frequency, and ultimately open up another location, right? Because maybe you're at capacity, right? Which is what's your experience. So a couple other things. What is your favorite neuromodulator?
So right now, my number one and favorite is Lativo. I've been having a really fun time utilizing that product. I think since launch in March, I've gone through close to 700 vials with just that single neuromodulator. That being said, I've used everything. So we use a lot of Xuman. I've used a ton of Jeuveau. I was very high level with that company for a very long time. I've used Daxify. I've used Botox. I've used Dysport. So they're all just little tools in the toolbox. So I would say my two top favorites right now are Lativo and Xuman, are my
Okay.
top two.
What's the biggest injector myth?
Ooh, that you're gonna walk into this and be rich and make lots of money.
Well said. Get rich quick, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's like a machine. It's like it just goes right back in for a long time, and I think like when I started, I actually jumped really quick into it, and I thought, and I didn't have a plan B, right? So this was my plan. I did stay at the hospital for a while I was, learning. But I jumped rather quickly, and I learned the hard way, like, oh my gosh, this is not sustainable at a low level, right away. So I think like understanding that it's going to take time to build while you're learning is huge. I think a lot of people come into the industry and think that they're gonna all of a sudden be walking around with designer bags, and I will tell you that now instead of designer bags, I want paid invoices, paid in cash. I want those terms, So I
Yeah,
no
yeah.
longer want the huge lines of credit. I want my invoices to be paid. And so there's a difference, I think, with the maturity of a medical spa practice that comes. It changes, it shifts, So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting to see us all, mature throughout our journey and everything that we're focused on. I think social media plays an interesting role at that. Is get into aesthetics, designer bags, cute shoes, designer clothes. I've seen some interesting things at conferences, but I love your answer. Paid invoices, no accounts receivable, and stacking, revenue and net income. I think that's wonderful. And then the last one for you is when people talk about Carly years from now, what do you want to be known for?
So I think personally would be like family orientation, like with my family, like family oriented. Because first and foremost, like my husband and I own our practice together, and that's like of paramount importance to me and our kids. So that would be first. I think we're trying to build like a legacy for our kids. We have one of our kids works for us. She's 22. She's learning everything from the front end. We're developing her to be a practice manager. She's also a licensed esthetician. And then I also have our second to we have four, so our 21-year-old's going to nursing school, right? So like we're trying to build a legacy, and whether they want to take over this or not, who knows? But I think just the legacy that we leave, and that we're trustworthy and good people, because for us it's all in our values. That's what I want to be known for. I don't really care somebody remembers my car or, you know, all the fancy things. Those things are nice. I like nice things, right? But that's not really what people are going to remember you for. So for us, it's really like our ethical values and even just loving on our patients, like building those relationships. So I think just being remembered as a good person.
Love that. Following mom and dad's path. Obviously, you guys are building something spectacular together, building that legacy. Really cool to watch. And so, thank you so much for truly what representing what discipline and excellent looks like in the industry, clinically, ethically, and as an entrepreneur and a business owner. So, thank you so much for joining. I know you have patients to see, treatment plans to build.
We
But
do.
if people want to connect with Carly, if and go to Speakeasy, what's the best place for them to connect with you and the practice?
So Instagram's a great spot. Speakeasy.rn is my personal one. I have a lot of my training stuff on there and some fun personality stuff that you'll see occasionally. We do have our Instagram for the business, which is Speakeasy Aesthetics. We're also trying to build out TikTok, but I feel too old to do that. So we've got our kids helping us with that.
Nice.
And then speakeasyaesthetics.com is our website.
Guys, go follow her. She's amazing. She's go check her out if you're in Nashville. She's at conferences. I talk to her husband on a regular basis. Super cool people. Deliver an incredible result, and obviously always trying to get back to the industry. So, Carly, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I'll leave it at that, guys. If you found this particular episode valuable, if it was well received, if you can pass it along to inherit the value. Everything that we produce here, it's to help you. It's to help scale. It's to help spread the word. It's to help build integrity within yourself, your practice, and really get back to the industry. So, if you found it valuable, please share it. Go check out the YouTube page. We just launched that. I mentioned that a couple times. So that's very very new. Just Cameron Hemphill. You'll find it online. And I will launch this episode here probably this week or next. Carly, thank you so much again for joining.
Thank you, Kim.
And
Appreciate it.
till next time, happy injecting.
Talk to you soon.